Injured and trapped bodies in amongst rubble. This is a scene after a building collapsed on Waterloo Station, and it's what emergency services face today in what looks like a major incident. But this is just a drill, and it's Europe's largest ever. Waterloo Station's been partially recreated and then crushed at a disused power station in Kent, and emergency services are using this to practice what they would do in the event of a real major incident. It's taken more than a year of planning, with 7 tube carriages and hundreds of emergency service staff. There's also 1,000 actors, many of them with fake wounds, providing real scenarios for the responders to deal with. The drill involves firefighters, police and paramedics, along with more than 70 other agencies, including local councils, utility companies and specialist search and rescue teams, and will last 4 days. There's also an on-site mortuary with disaster victim identification teams from all UK police regions working with other forensic specialists. The scale of this drill gives the teams an opportunity to practice skills and functions they rarely get to use, and hope they won't have to.
The UN Refugee Agency has raised the alarm over the rapid build-up of migrants on the Greek-Macedonian border. The bottleneck began after Macedonia imposed tight controls over a week ago and threatened to shut the crossing altogether.
Tens of thousands of asylum seekers registered in Germany last year have gone missing. The German government says that it doesn't know the whereabouts of 130,000 refugees, as they did not show up at reception centres to which they had been directed. According to officials, the refugees may have returned home, moved to another country, gone underground, or registered several times. The missing make up nearly 13% of 1.1 million people listed in Germany in 2015. The German Interior Ministry says it is taking new measures to address the issue.
Suspension release. Enclosure door open.
Airmen from Minot and Vandenberg Air Force bases conducted an operational test launch of an unarmed Minuteman III missile. The test launch used an intercontinental ballistic missile pulled randomly from a silo on Minot. The missile was then transported and reassembled at Vandenberg and launched by crew members from the 91st Missile Wing. This was the second test launch by Minot and Vandenberg crews this week. The ICBM was equipped with a test re-entry vehicle and traveled more than 4,000 miles to a test range near the Kwajalein Atoll in the Marshall Islands. ICBM test launches verify the accuracy and reliability of the weapon system, providing valuable data to ensure a safe, secure, and effective nuclear deterrent.
In Houston, the police have released an incredible video today. It shows a team of thieves ransacking a gun store. Manuel Bojorquez has this.
The dawn burglary in the Southwest Houston gun shop was fast and furious. The group of men pulled up to the front of the store with a large pickup truck, smashed the windows, attached a chain to the doors, and pulled them right off their hinges. 10 people then rushed in and ran through the store, smashing a row of glass cases with hammers, grabbing handguns by the sackful. At this angle, we see one man scoop up at least 4 rifles off the back rack. An early investigation shows the thieves got away with at least 50 weapons. Scott, so far there have been no arrests. Federal officials say weapons stolen in this type of burglary will likely end up on the black market and could be used in violent crimes.
A disturbing video out of Russia has gone viral. It reportedly shows a nanny walking around Moscow, clutching a child's severed head. Russian news agencies say police initially approached the woman to check her documents. When she pulled out the child's head from a bag, she allegedly muttered references to terrorism and was arrested. Russian investigators say they don't know why the woman killed the little girl, believed to be 3 or 4 years old. The victim's body was found at a nearby apartment that had been set on fire, but media reports from Russia indicate the woman may be the little girl's nanny.
Well, their mission is to protect human health and the environment, but many local EPA workers claim they're the ones getting sick by just going to work.
Well, Raj and Jess, EPA workers say it's ironic they're being instructed to work in a building they don't think is safe. After 2 years of renovations, nearly 100 employees have complained about the indoor air quality, and they say their bosses aren't fixing the problem. Now they're turning to us for help.
Construction continues outside the Region 9 EPA headquarters in San Francisco, but workers say it's what you can't see flowing inside the building that troubles them.
It just seems crazy to us that someone would be risking their health by coming into the office to work on cleaning up the environment elsewhere.
Tally Jolish works as a staff attorney for the EPA and serves as vice president of one of Region 9's 3 unions. Leaders from all the unions sat down with the NBC Bay Area Investigative Unit to voice their concerns about the indoor air quality for workers assigned here.
Some folks are reporting that they come to work and then within an hour they're not able to actually work and function.
So what's causing the bad air? Air quality studies conducted by a consultant hired by the EPA reveal elevated levels of formaldehyde and caprolactam, which are found in furniture and carpeting. The EPA classifies formaldehyde as a probable human carcinogen, but caprolactam's health effects are less known.
So people are breathing in these chemicals?
Yes.
The 2 chemicals tested at levels above California state standards. The EPA doesn't believe it's out of compliance because the levels were not sustained over 8 hours, but then again, the agency admits it never tested over an 8-hour span of time.
We were shocked, and then, we wanted answers.
Anxious times for Nate Markley of Maynard after learning that tests reveal elevated levels of a potentially dangerous chemical compound in one of the town's drinking water wells, a chemical that can cause big problems for women who are expecting. Markley's wife is 9 months pregnant.
We've just been concerned about correlations with miscarriage in the first trimester, with possible stillborn births, and also with bladder cancer, liver problems, nervous system problems over time.
The chemicals are called trihalomethanes, a byproduct created when communities treat water with chlorine to combat bacteria. The town says the water is safe to drink. However,
there is some concern. There is evidence that TTHMs might be harmful. You should follow up with your physician on that. In the meantime, the town will be flushing our water lines.
Even though the test was conducted back on December 16th, the town of Maynard says the State Department of Environmental Protection did not notify Maynard town officials about those elevated levels until this week. But on Friday, the town website said Maynard got the results back in mid-January. Nate Markley just wishes he knew before his wife's 9th month.
We would have been able to at least stop drinking the tap water. And so we're really upset about the way it's been handled and the fact that the information wasn't shared with the public in a timely fashion.
This week, a study confirmed the methane gas leak in Porter Ranch, California was the largest in U.S. history. More than 100,000 tons of methane leaked before it was capped. The people who live there have been told it is safe to return home, but as Carter Evans reports, many are still skeptical.
Or you guys can play for a minute while I unpack a couple of things.
Sandy Crawford has been trying to make this hotel room feel like home for more than a month.
Are you going to play with me or not?
Her family, like so many others, was elated when officials last week declared the crisis over.
The leak in Aliso Canyon storage field is permanently sealed.
When you drove back into the neighborhood, could you smell the gas?
No, couldn't smell it. I was hopeful. I thought we were good.
But within hours of returning home, Crawford says her youngest son had trouble breathing again, and worse.
I looked at him and there's just blood down his face. I put it on our Facebook group for Porter Ranch, and the parents are just, everyone's coming in saying we're having the same problems. Our kids are having the same issues.
Crawford says she had no choice but to move back to the hotel.
When you left, did all of those symptoms go away?
100%.
Parents across America say they're concerned and they're frustrated after a strain of super lice hits 25 states. So the problem is these pesky parasites can't be killed with most over-the-counter treatments. To kill super lice, experts say that you should first try learning how to comb them out with over-the-counter treatments repeatedly over several weeks. Parents should also ask a doctor for prescription treatments and wash clothing and linens in hot water. Ugh, lice.
New developments in a dairy industry scandal we've been reporting. A CBS News investigation reveals new evidence of contamination at a Pennsylvania cheesemaker that pleaded guilty last week to selling counterfeit Parmesan. The FDA says Castle Cheese sold questionable products to retailers across the country, including Target and Walmart.
When the FDA inspected Castle Cheese in 2012, acting on an anonymous tip, they made an unsettling discovery. Castle's 100% Parmesan was actually a blend of cheaper cheeses like Swiss and mozzarella, and in one case, an unknown ingredient. These FDA records show cheese was stored in this unrefrigerated room, which could cause bacteria to thrive. What's more, the company found Listeria, a potentially deadly pathogen, in its production area 10 times, yet continued to sell its cheese without testing it. Which might be troubling enough if we didn't find records from the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, which inspected Castle Cheese around the same time as the FDA did. In June of 2012, State Inspector David Trotter wrote, "The plant continues to be in excellent condition. I appreciate the plant management and the quality work that they do." His glowing reviews continued until August of 2013, when he left the Department of Agriculture for a new job.
Protesters, take a look at the video. They locked arms outside the theater. They refused to let people in to hear Shapiro's speech. One of the people they blocked was an Army veteran. Think about that, a man who put his life on the line so these people could do what they're doing. They would not allow them in to hear Ben Shapiro.
Why was there such pushback to Ben Shapiro's speech? I mean, really, just because he was a conservative?
It is because he's a conservative. Look, they're the one conservative organization on campus. That's it. Young America's Foundation, which is sponsoring this 10-city speaking tour, is the only conservative organization on campus. The Student Council government twice approved this speech. The day before, they had Angela Davis in a video speech deliver a speech. This is a woman who is an avowed communist, a radical. I mean, you go back in your history books and you can see who she is. There was no protest about her speaking. It is because he's a conservative. They're saying that the speech was racist and hate speech.
In another important story today, the biggest abortion case in a decade was argued before the 8 justices of the Supreme Court. This one is a challenge to a Texas law that imposes tough standards on abortion clinics.
It's considered to be one of the most significant abortion cases heard before the Supreme Court in 25 years. A Texas law that requires doctors who perform abortions to have admitting privileges at nearby hospitals and force clinics to meet hospital-like standards for outpatient surgery. Proponents of both sides of the issue argued before the High Court on Thursday, while demonstrators rallied outside, many pro-abortion rights supporters. More than an hour of pointed questioning from liberal and conservative justices suggested little common ground.
The only justice who was hard to read was Justice Anthony Kennedy, whose vote is almost surely decisive in a case like this.
The case being heard less than 3 weeks after the death of Justice Antonin Scalia and in the middle of a raucous presidential campaign.
We do miss Justice Scalia. I'm hoping we get a pro-life president next year who we can appoint the next justice. In the meantime, it's going to be a balance, so we don't know how it's going to turn out.
U.S. officials say a pastor at a local church has been killed in a shooting incident in the state of Ohio. The incident happened at a Baptist church in the city of Dayton. According to local sources, the gunman shot the pastor at the pulpit while choir was singing. More than 20 people were reported to be inside the church at the time of the shooting. Witnesses say the gunman is the pastor's brother. Police have arrested the shooter and taken him into custody.
They called on God because moments earlier he called someone home. We followed the cries back to their roots, St. Peter's Missionary Baptist Church.
I tried to stop Pastor's wife from going back there, but she pushed me out of the way.
She found the same thing investigators did. A principal, a superintendent, a pastor, her husband.
He's done a lot, within the community. He's touched a lot of young people's lives, and he was an integral part in my rearing.
And we heard boom booms.
Shots echoed out of Reverend Dr. William Schooler's study. Ushers directed grief-stricken members outside. Once they wiped away tears, they saw their place of worship, wrapped up in tape and covered in sin.
At least 5 people are in critical condition this morning after a deadly shooting spree in Kansas. The gunman killed 3 people before police killed him. 14 others were hurt. The rampage stretched across 2 towns outside Wichita. The chaos ended at a factory where the shooter worked.
In this clip posted to Facebook last September, 38-year-old Cedric Ford is firing an AK-style rifle, the same type sources say he used to gun down his co-workers late yesterday at this Kansas lawnmower factory. It began at 4:57 p.m., police getting calls about a gunman randomly shooting a driver in the shoulder, not far away shooting another, stealing his car. By 5:04 p.m., Ford is pulling into the Excel lot 6 miles away, shooting 1 person outside. Inside, 14 more.
People were getting pushed, trampled. It was just, everyone was just trying to get out of the shooting.
3 Excel employees are killed: Renee Benjamin, Brian Sadowski, and Josh Higbee. At 5:06, the first help arrives. It is Heston's police chief, Doug Schroeder, racing inside to confront Ford in a one-on-one gun battle. By 5:24, the shootout is over. Ford is dead. Sergeant Chris Carter says what his boss did saved a lot of lives.
If there's gunfire, we go to the gunfire. We go stop it. If you're by yourself, you're by yourself.
Is that a hard instinct to fight, though? I mean, most of us run away from the danger.
Nope, absolutely not. We will run towards the gunfire.
What caused Ford to snap? Police say just 90 minutes before the rampage, Ford was served at work with a court order to stay away from an ex-girlfriend who alleges he was violently abusive. She wrote, he is in desperate need of medical and psychological help. Today, the president made yet another call to a community now mourning.
The real tragedy is the degree to which this has become routine.
This is the new Google robot. I think it's coming to take your job. Look at this for a while. All right, Joe, as we're watching this, what's new about that robot?
This is a more agile, lighter weight, more evolved robot with better technology. What you see there are hydraulics working better in the joints. It's 5'9". It's about 189 pounds. And this robot is able to respond to different things.
Well, congratulations, all you minimum wage protesters. Companies are finally paying up. Unfortunately, just as they're likely to be throwing you out. And all because of something you apparently couldn't figure out. Robots. You are being replaced by robots. Rosie the robot is now cleaning your clocks, which is weird because the Jetsons maid never really had to punch in. She was kind of always there, a permanent presence. And news today, she's about to become a very permanent, ubiquitous presence throughout America. A professor out today with this bold and very scary prediction. Robotics will be the way to the future, and a lot of minimum wage workers won't be the way to the future. He points to the signs already. Fast food joints that have automatic drink dispensers, even automatic checkout. I'm telling you, at the rate we're going, those burgers will be the ones cooking. Which brings me back to protesters. You have every right to complain, every right to demand. Neither, unfortunately, guarantees your right to a job. Low pay, high pay. Here is the reality. The world is, well, automating. And at our lowest and most untrained level, you have now succeeded in automating your way right out of a livelihood. Because that's the thing about robots. They don't complain much. In the long term, they really don't cost much. Certainly not nearly as much as you.
China's plans to lay off nearly 2 million workers may just be the tip of the iceberg. Sources exclusively telling Reuters that up to 6 million Chinese could lose their jobs in the next few years. The government is taking aim at so-called zombie firms in state-backed industries like steel and coal. They want to cut expenses and pollution. But as Reuters' David Stanway says, that could leave Beijing with an even bigger problem on its hands: civil unrest.
The problem here is that a lot of the job cuts are going to be targeted in particular regions, and these regions are struggling already. Hebei is China's region that suffers the most from zombie firms. There are already hundreds of steel mills which are on the verge of closure. Hebei also surrounds Beijing, so if you have 100,000 laid-off workers in Hebei, they could easily flock into Beijing and cause pressures on the authorities in the capital.
This isn't the first time Beijing's cut state workers en masse. Layoffs were a simple solution to economic troubles in the 90s, but since then, times have changed.
During the Asian financial crisis, there was something like 25 to 30 million layoffs over a period of about 6 years. The difference here now is that the workers, it's very difficult to retrain them. And to bring people who've been working in mines and factories for 30 years into the new economy, into services, into high tech, is going to be a huge challenge for the government.
Steel workers stage a protest outside the European Commission in Brussels to highlight the thousands of job losses in their industry and the thousands more that hang in the balance. They say nothing is being done to offset the damage being caused to the steel sector by cheap imports from China.
The European Commission should take measures against the risks that there are, because prices are going every time lower and lower, and that can be a risk for the jobs here in the steel sector in Europe and Belgium.
Steel workers are not the only ones struggling. The latest figures from Eurostat, the EU's statistical office, show that 16.6 million people are unemployed in the Eurozone.
Few months of calm, Israeli settlers backed by Israeli troops have once again stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. The raid enraged Palestinian worshippers and set off clashes between the Palestinians and the Israeli military.
Yehuda Glick, an Israeli activist in favor of increased Jewish presence on the Temple Mount, returned to the Powder Keg holy site Tuesday for the first time since he was the target of a 2014 assassination attempt. Glick is a well-known Israeli activist in favor of increased Jewish presence on the Temple Mount. Glick, who advocates for Jewish prayer at the site, toured with his wife and lawyer and was surrounded by police, who were not informed of his visit ahead of time.
Dozens of Israeli settlers entered the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound in small groups and toured the holy site, from which they are banned, provoking tensions with worshippers who protested by chanting religious slogans. Since the beginning of last October, tensions have been running high across the occupied West Bank, including in Jerusalem, Al-Quds, and Gaza. The situation has escalated over Israel's repeated storming of the mosque and Tel Aviv's unilateral enforcement of a temporal division between Muslims and Jews. Prior to the new wave of uprising, which began in October, several studies had pointed out that Israelis' incitement and violations of Palestinians' rights in Jerusalem, Al-Quds, especially raids into the Muslims' holy sites, have increased dramatically in 2015.
It is an attempt by the settlers to create a new reality on the ground in the courtyard of Al-Aqsa Mosque. Despite the relative quiet in Al-Aqsa over the past few weeks, the raids continued, though they were limited in size and frequency. Today, the settlers are trying to send a message to the Palestinian people, as well as the Islamic world, that they are continuing this policy of laying claim to the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Palestinian officials say Israel is trying to completely divide the Al-Aqsa Mosque into Jewish and Muslim sides as part of its push to Judaize Jerusalem, Al-Quds.
Talking about the basics, the Israelis have divided the Al-Aqsa Mosque in time and in space. In the early morning, they begin to storm the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and then in the afternoon, once more they come in. They come in through the Mugraba Gate and exit through the Chains Gate on a daily basis.
Several experts and analysts have warned that Israeli incitement against Muslims could trigger a conflict that would likely result in disastrous consequences.
The Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine has held a big rally in Gaza Strip on the occasion of the 47th anniversary of its foundation. Those attending the march also expressed their support for the Third Intifada, which has been underway for almost 6 months.
Palestinians in the Gaza Strip took to the street in large numbers to support the Third Intifada or popular uprising while marking the 47th anniversary of the establishment of the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine. Palestinian protesters shouted slogans against Israel and slammed the international silence towards Israeli crimes. The Third Intifada started early October in response to Israeli attacks against the Aqsa Mosque compound and the old city of Jerusalem, Al-Quds. Since October, the Israeli army has killed and injured hundreds of Palestinian people. The Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine says high protester turnout points to the people's unwavering support for the Intifada.
As you can see, a large number of people took part in this protest to affirm that Palestinians will not stop this Intifada until the occupation ends. It is a right to fight the occupation, and we will not stop until all our land is free. The people came out to say that we must unite and accelerate the Intifada against the occupation.
Gaza-based Palestinian resistance factions also maintained that armed resistance is the only way to liberate Palestine. Recent polls show that many residents of Gaza and the occupied West Bank see no point in the so-called peace process with Israel.
The Intifada will continue until all of its goals are achieved. The Intifada has been spreading all over Palestine and nothing will stop it. This popular uprising is matured and will only grow stronger with all forms of resistance. Armed resistance is the key to keeping this Intifada alive.
What was important to us in the development of these technologies was increasing the safety level of the people who come in contact with different chemical gases. By using these new technologies, we can detect the chemical elements and increase the safety level of our forces in battlefield.
همچنین یک نسل جدید لباس‌های محافظ NBC ساختند که بر پایه فناوری غشاهای تراوگزین است و می‌تواند محافظ مناسبی در برابر نفوذ عوامل شیمیایی و بیولوژیکی محسوب شود. این لباس‌های محافظ دیگر معایب لباس‌های محافظ بر پایه کربن فعال و لایه لاستیکی رو نداره و از وزن بسیار سبکی برخورداره. آقا وزنش سبکه.
Chemical medical forces.
Israel is holding biannual war games in the U.S. with the U.S. That is, it reports a simulation of Hezbollah attacks are part of the drills. That's amid media speculation that Israel is preparing for another military confrontation with Lebanon's Hezbollah.
Israeli media say Tel Aviv is making preparations for a likely future conflict with Hezbollah. The media, including the daily Yediot Ahronot, says the Israeli military would face major challenges in the face of Hezbollah. But they also said Israel is ready to do whatever in a potential confrontation, including indiscriminate bombing of Lebanese villages. Israel is already mulling protective measures along the border with southern Lebanon and is seeking to buy new weapons from the US. Meanwhile, the US and the Israeli militaries are currently holding the biannual Juniper Cobra military drills. The exercises are aimed at enhancing Israel's capabilities against missile attacks and specifically on countering Hezbollah's enhanced capabilities.
Israel is already known for its impressive Iron Dome system, and now it will start installing its latest invention, David Sling. The new missile defense system is being delivered to the Israeli Air Force and will soon be ready for full deployment. David Sling is designed to protect Israel from medium-range rockets, including ballistic missiles. It will be the middle tier of Israel's multi-layer defense system. The lowest layer is the Iron Dome system, which intercepts short-range missiles. David Sling will go even higher to destroy medium-range missiles, which the Israeli Defense Ministry says will help effectively defend the Jewish state.